I just wanted to ask you about the problem that North Macedonia had with Greece, because a lot of people say it's just about the changing of the name, but the root of the problem was a historical problem. Who is the real, who are the real Macedonians, and who are the ancestors too? Basically, it's a very big question. We know in the historiography there is a lot of different opinions about that subject, but they were definitely not Slavic. They were definitely not Slavic, and this is very true. But both in the conflict with the political conflict with Greece and the political conflict with Bulgaria, we have a problem with the Macedonian historiography, and I have a big problem as a historian, a person who reads a lot of books about that history of the region and history of internal Macedonian revolutionary organization. I think a lot of people say from Macedonian side that the problem is between those conflicting narratives between Bulgarian historical tale and Macedonian historical tale. I think that the Macedonian historiography have a problem with the world historiography. I'm living in London. I'm reading R.J. Crampton, Stephen Runciman, Stefan Tropst, which is a German historian. He writes about the Macedonian Revolutionary Organization. And most of the things, at least 95% of the things there in the Bulgarian historical books are proven, and you can read the same things here in the Oxford educated historians. How would you comment that? How do we counter that? It's like they're living we had that discussion before the podcast of some form of a cognitive dissonance where all of the world is agreeing on one thing and they're just saying or writing the other and falsifying documents, which is even worse.
So, yes, this is a big problem. And so the problem that we have is to explain why that actually matters through the EU integration process. I completely agree it's a big problem. Not only what we call world historiography, the English language historiography that you mentioned, R.J. Crampton, but also people from the region who have provided intellectual work all around the globe. Most recent work on 19th century Macedonia, Ipek Usmaoglu, 2014. Very clear. Only Turkish and Greek archival documents, not any Bulgarian or any other archival documents used in work. Very clear, very explicit about it. Ivo Banac, again, Croatian scholar Professor out of University of Yale, again, very clear about the national question in Yugoslavia book, and so on and so forth. It is mountains of evidence in one direction and virtually no evidence. And that's why I actually said that there were actually a few individuals. We know their names. One of them was this guy Dinev over from Smokvica, from this village in Gevgelija, Smartakalev, Ivanovsky, and a bunch of other individuals who belong to the communist idea of the 1930s and 40s, and they started actually writing a narrative which basically took all these Bulgarian heroes from the Middle Ages all the way through Imoro and presenting them as Macedonian. So they were not wrong in the sense that these people felt belonging to the region of Macedonia and could have referred themselves also as Macedonian. What they created is this fraudulent forgery that these people had an identity separate from the Bulgarian, namely. Most of them identified either as Macedonian Bulgarians or as Bulgarians. Yes, they loved Macedonia. They identified as Macedonians, just like Dalmatians identified as Dalmatians, but also as Croats. Kosovars living in Kosovo identified as Kosovars, but also as Albanians. Cypriots as Cypriots, but also
similar case with Montenegro too.
Yeah, Montenegro is even a little bit more complicated, but there is this multi-tiered identity, and we've talked about this on other occasions. So this doesn't come to a surprise, and of course they had the love for their region, and it was them who actually in the 1920s started talking first about having an independent state, and before that in the late 19th century started talking about autonomous Macedonia or Macedonia for the Macedonians. So people who had Bulgarian consciousness and identified themselves as Bulgarian Macedonian Bulgarians were the ones who actually created the idea of Macedonian first as a political, what we call it, Macedonianness, and then gradually the left wing of those group of people in the IMRO were in the 1930s started creating separate national identity. Either way, all of this happened in the somewhere between 1930s and 1940s, and all the evidence, or the overwhelming amount of evidence, is pointing in this direction. Not only that, but if you look at the Greek sources, if you look at Serbian sources, where there was basically major clash between these three big nationalisms, the Bulgarian, the Greek, and the Serbian in Macedonia. They're all confirming. I was just listening very recently. There was a Serbian intellectual, Uroš, I forgot his last name, who published a book on that. And he was looking at the Serbian national idea, and the Serbian Chetniks who were active in Macedonia. And he was saying, well, they were clashing with IMRO, who were a Bulgarian organization. A pro-Bulgarian, and who stood for the Bulgarians in Macedonia. So some people call it historical revisionism. And that's when I end up explaining what's the historical dispute, the essence of the historical dispute, which is the implications are far beyond history, but the essence of it is the some people call it historical revisionism. Fellows from sort of East European historical societies here use that label. And other colleagues of mine, when I've talked and showed them some of my discussions with Professor Chepreganov and others on Macedonian TV stations, they said, well, they look at me and say, well, so what you're telling is that they're committing a forgery. Yes, that is a forgery or falsification. And the essence of the problem is that they start with an erroneous assumption that Macedonian national idea and identity started to develop parallel to the Bulgarian, Serbian, or Greek, which was 1930. That was just wrong. And that is the essence of the problem.